Well, I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. I don't want to tell you about my business too much because I think Delsey's going to talk some more about that. So I got started in bees in 2013. I bought 2 beehives on Craigslist after Delsey told me not to bring stinging insects home. And that grew to like 10, then 50, and then we got real crazy and we grew that number of hives to almost 1,000. We never quite hit 1,000 hives, but pretty close. We used to take bees down to almonds. We've done crop pollination all over Oregon and Washington, producing varietal honeys. Varietal honeys is really our niche. It's our specialty. It's what we like to do. And Delsey's going to talk a lot about varietal honeys tonight, so I won't tell you a lot about that either. Today, our business is a little bit more diversified. We run a beekeeping supply store for the mid-Willamette Valley and still produce some varietal honeys. We produce other specialty products of the hive like honeycomb and propolis and beeswax and bee pollen. But today, what I'm here for is I want to talk about honey extracting 101. For some of you, I expect this will be review, and maybe some of you could teach it better than me even. So, but we've done a lot of honey harvest. There's some cool photos in here I'm going to show you guys. We started at the very basic level. I used a kitchen fork and some rudimentary things around the kitchen to like extract my first honey box ever. And we sort of ended our honey extracting career last year with some really large equipment. So let me get into it. So the first photo I have here is a mess. And that's, I chose this photo because I really wanted to instill, as I talk about extracting honey, one, to expect the mess. It is a sticky operation. It's pretty messy. There's going to be honey and beeswax and bees and stuff everywhere. And also, just to show you that it's okay. Like, we do this for a living. We do this every single day, work with honey. And this stuff's actually like a little too common. They're just mistakes. In this case, I think that's sunflower honey on the floor, and that bucket that's in a heater there from some crystallized honey split. Don't buy cheap buckets. Don't buy buckets from that look like Purina brand there. So seriously, don't buy cheap buckets. It's not worth it. Okay, so what is a honey super? Honey supers are the boxes that go on top of the beehives. I love this photo. It's the oldest photo from our family of beekeepers. This is my great uncle Wayne. This photo is probably taken in probably the late 90s or early 2000s. This is on a fireweed yard that we still have today. It's up near Marion Forks, which is up in the Willamette National Forest east of Detroit. And these fireweed yards are pretty hard to find. This is amazing to me. I don't know how many supers are on there. It'd be 6 honey supers. Anybody in the room have 6 honey supers on right now? How about 5? 4? 5? 6. Okay. So not impossible. This year, 2025's honey crop is amazing. Like, our honey flows are really amazing in the valley. And frankly, I just don't see 6 very much anymore. It's obviously not impossible. 3 is a good day, and when we sell nukes to new beekeepers, we kind of set the benchmark at 2. Our expectation is to get an average of 2 honey supers, but the super is everything above the second box for us. The super is kind of a generic term. It just represents the name for the box that holds the surplus honey. All of these boxes have honey in them, but the lower boxes are where the queen is, where she's rearing brood, and there's pollen and nursery stuff going on down there. In our operation, we run queen excluders, so that keeps the queen down in the lower boxes and prevents her from laying eggs up in the super above. And I mentioned surplus honey. We consider everything in these supers above that second box to be a surplus, so we feel like it's fair game to harvest that honey. Everything the bees store down in the lower box, we leave that for the winter time. They get to keep that. How much honey? So does anybody know how much honey is made in an average 10-frame honey super? So this happens to be an 8-frame one today, but how many pounds of honey do you guys think? Anybody have a guess? 12 pounds? What? 25, 35, 35. Yeah, so it's typically averages about 30. It can be more than that. We run 9 frames in our 10-frame boxes. That allows them to overdraw the combs a little bit and put some more honey in there. I talked about queen excluders. We love them. They're not for everybody. They're not necessary. It's okay if a queen comes up here, it doesn't mean beekeeping's over if she lays some eggs up there. I see a big debate about queen excluders all the time, and I really don't think it's a big deal. If you don't like them, it's totally fine. If you do, it's great. For us, they're essential. When we come out to pull these honey supers off, I don't have time to look for a queen in every single box. I need to be able to lift that box, see that there's no eggs, and move on. All right. Okay, so removing the honey supers. When do you remove them? Well, now's a good time. It's hot outside. The honey supers are full. If anybody's been in their beehive in the last couple of weeks, you'll probably notice that, one, the supers are full, and that they're probably getting honey bound. I haven't seen truly honey bound hives in a few years, but this year we're seeing it a lot. That's where the bees have filled so much honey that they're actually starting to backfill the brood nest down below in the lower two boxes. And the bees can actually effectively kill themselves off by getting to a point where they're so honey bound that the queen runs out of space to lay eggs. And if you have no eggs, you have no new bees, and no new bees will eventually result in the collapse of the colony. So again, not a problem we see all the time, but this year, wow, there's a lot of honey. So I've noticed that with new beekeepers, it was a little tougher this year. If you started out with a nuke and new foundation, they probably filled that up faster than they could draw a new comb. And so honey bound was a little bit of a problem. If you're an old-time beekeeper, have drawn comb, that was really nice this year to keep from getting honey bound. All right, I want to talk about a few props here. So when we're talking about removing honey from the supers, there's a couple of tools we use. The first one is called a bee escape or an escape board. So it's got a triangle on the bottom side. It's got a hole on the top side. So I would take the honey super off the beehive. I would place this bee escape on top of the second brood box. And I would wait about 24 to 48 hours, depending on how many, probably about 24 hours per honey super. So if you're doing more, it's going to take a little longer. And it's basically a one-way gate. The bees can go out the triangle, but they can't come back up the triangle, at least for a while. So this is pretty cool. So let me show you on this side over here. If this was my honey super on my beehive, I'd remove the super. I'd place this honey escape board just like that on top of my brood box. And then I would replace the honey super back on top. And over the next day and a half to 2 days, the bees are going to go down and not be able to figure out how to come back up. And this is a super cool way to mechanically get the bees out of the super. It's going to make your life a lot easier getting to the honey extracting part. Let's see here. The other option, I'm going to move kind of fast here because I want to get through some other ones. The other option would be to use a fume board. So this board here has felt on the inside of it, so it's like a carpet in here. And we use a product called Honey Bandit. The commercial beekeepers use a product called Honey Robber. It smells like roadkill and I don't know, it's nasty, super nasty. And butyric acid, and it works too good. Anything that ever touches, the bees will never go near it. So if you ever have someplace you got a little hole in the barn wall you don't want bees in, just spray some of that in there. So this Honey Bandit, this is kind of nice. This product smells like almonds. You spray a couple spritz in here on this carpet, and I come out to my beehive. I take the lid off and put this fume board right on top of the honey super. It's got a black corrugated plastic top on it. This little board here just replaces my lid for a short time. It doesn't take a long time. I mean, anywhere from like 20 minutes to maybe a couple hours at most, depending on how strong the colony is. And it just drives the bees out. They don't like the smell of that stuff, so this is a chemical way to get the bees out of the honey super, so it's driving them down into the brood box. And then when you're ready, you come out, remove the fume board, and you can remove this honey super. And the idea is that there's little or no bees left in here. You know, there might be a handful walking around, but you could brush those off pretty easily. All right, my favorite one, the leaf blower. So This photo is actually not me. There aren't any photos that exist with me leaf blowing bees, but you can leaf blower bees, and it sounds pretty dramatic. Has anybody used a leaf blower to get honey? Yeah, okay, a couple. There's a couple, so I'm not making it up. You don't have to create a hurricane. It doesn't take 50 miles an hour of wind to blow the bees out. You know, think about if you've ever held a frame of bees and you blow on the bees, like to move them or something. Like a little bit of wind moves the bees. They just blow right off. And it only works in one direction. You got to blow them from bottom up. And anyway, what I like to do is take one frame out, so I have a little bit of space in here, and then we kind of evenly space them out. This happens in the field while we're pulling honey. So when you're at home, you just kind of do this kind of quick, tip it up on its side, run the leaf blower through there, and voila, all the bees blow out. These are all your foragers, right? That's the bees that are up in the honey super. So they know what's up. They know how to find home. They know how to fly. So it's no big deal to just blow them out. They'll come right back to where the hive was. So when you're removing honey supers, there's some other tools that might be helpful. Things like hand trucks, forklift. You probably don't have forklifts to remove your honey supers, but I do. A pickup truck, you know. One thing I tell new beekeepers all the time when they're getting started with their beehives is when you place your beehive, think about carrying honey supers back. You know, if you got 40 acres, don't put them way down there, because you got to walk down there and carry all that stuff back and forth. You know, it's okay to keep your bees up near the house or something. All right. Bring the supers inside. So now that we've got all the bees out of here, we need to get them inside pretty quick, because it won't take very long for the ladies to find these honey supers. You know, at home, it's a good idea to have, like, sometimes you can use like a big Rubbermaid container, some sort of storage box from the hardware store or something, to like put those inside and put a lid on it while you're doing other bee stuff. You just need to get these inside sooner than later, because if you leave them outside too long, the bees are just going to find this again, and you're going to have a robbing problem. So we use nets, whether it's on a truck or in the yard. You can put some sort of a tarp or screen netting or something like that over the top of the honey supers. And the bees will be all around it. They'll smell it and see it in there, but they're not getting back in. They're not getting back in these frames, which is important, because once they get back in there, you got to start all over again. Think about where you're taking this stuff before you start. So are you going to do it in the garage, in the kitchen, at home? Do you have a honey house? Honey house doesn't have to be a big separate building. It can just be, I've seen a lot of times, they're a little garden shed or a little closet or something. Just a little space that has a door that closes so that it's not open to the outside. You don't want anything where the bees can get in, and preferably a way for the bees to get out. It's pretty inevitable that when you harvest honey, unless you're really good, there's probably going to be some bees come with you somewhere. And it's nice if you got a screen or something to let all those bees out. Yeah, so the bees are going to follow you. So wherever the honey goes, they will smell it. Bees have an incredible sense of smell. Our honey house, sometimes even when there's no bees on our property at all, like 30 seconds this time of year, if I open the door to that honey house, boom, they're there. I don't even know where they come from. Make sure the area that you're going to be working inside is clean. That kind of is a given. You're working with a food product, whether it's for yourself or for honey for retail sales or something else. I don't think probably many people will be in here subject to it, but just know that honey extraction is governed like any other food product. There are some exceptions actually that make it a little less regulated, but the Oregon Department of Agriculture is the agency that oversees all the honey safety rules. All right, uncapping. So now that we got inside, we're away from the bees, hopefully. We need to get some honey out of there, and how do we do that? Well, the process of removing liquid honey from the frames is called extraction, so that's what we're doing. There's other ways to remove honey that aren't necessarily liquid honey. I'm not going to talk about those today, but you could do cut comb, you could do Ross rounds, or some other technique where you're harvesting maybe the beeswax with the honey. A couple of the tools that we often use, or at least I have used in the past, these are common tools. The roller on the side is kind of like a paint roller, and it's got spikes on it, and it does a pretty good job of uncapping all those wax cappings. That tool works really well. I have owned one of these planers. Anybody ever used one of these, the hot planers? I don't see any hands. They're not super common. I thought this was the coolest thing I ever saw when I got it. And it's actually kind of a piece of junk. I don't like it. I sold it to somebody for like way less than I paid for it because I just wanted it out of there. It's basically a heating element, and it's got a sharp blade on the back end of it, and you don't really press. You kind of just drag it down the frame. Just the weight of itself is enough weight, and it planes off and rolls up in this little scoop here, this nice sheet of beeswax. The problem I had with these, they get too hot, and it almost cauterizes the honey behind it. It like reseals it with like a fine wax cap. It's kind of the strangest thing. It's like a super cool idea, but in practice, it's just not my favorite tool. A couple other uncapping tools that I brought, you guys are welcome to check these out later, are things like uncapping knives. These look like bread knives. They kind of saw along the frame. They make another version of this that's heated, kind of like the tool I just showed you. The uncapping planer is a heated tool. And my favorite tool, people always think there's like some expensive, awesome thing, but it's this cheapo little $8 scratcher that is kind of like a glorified kitchen fork here. And I have one of these that has sat on our commercial extractor for as long as I've had bees, and my uncle had it there for even longer. I mean, that tool is probably 20 years old, and this thing has uncapped more honeycomb frames than any of those other things all combined. This tool, which is on your guys' left over there, it's just the perfect tool. It scratches all those little honey cappings off. Even when they go through a commercial extractor, we still have to use these because there's a little corner of it doesn't get uncapped or something. And there just really isn't a tool that beats out this little cheapo uncapping scratcher. All right, so extracting. This photo is fun for me. It's my very first honey frame ever from a long time ago. And this cheapo honey extractor that I bought is a 2-frame crank. It's actually really nice. I shouldn't call it a cheapo. It's stainless. It's just pretty nice. You know, for my first honey extractor, it was awesome. And this thing, I think we wore out a couple of sets of leather gloves cranking on that thing. We kept that way too long. This is a 1 to 2 beehive setup right here, okay? I think we had 50 beehives and we were still messing around with this thing. So this honey extractor holds 2 frames, so it's extracting 2 frames at a time. There's a handle here that's cranking, so this is manual power. There's no motor on this thing. And I got a little bucket, and it looks like a steak knife. I don't know what I was doing with that. Probably didn't have the $8 scratcher back then. And I got this is my uncapping planer here. And I got a strainer and a bucket and some stuff going on here. So how big of an extractor do you guys need? So I kind of gave it a little bit, you know, 2-frame extractor, hand crank, 1 to 2 beehive situation. For your bees at home, I think this is totally satisfactory for honestly up to maybe 5 or 6 beehives. If you're bigger than that, if you have more hives than that, more supers, you're talking about, you know, a dozen or more honey supers. This is a lot of work, and I think the motorized extractor is more appropriate at that dozen or more honey super volume. I was gonna ask before the talk, but I didn't. I just kind of assumed, does Lane County have an extractor that can be borrowed from the club? Yeah, so most clubs have that across the state. It's one of the best features or perks, if you will, I think, of all the clubs around the state. Most of them have a nice motorized one, you know, and those probably run about $1,500. Some of them are more, plus you get all the buckets and other things that go with it. And for the small membership fee every year, that honestly is worth it just for that alone. Where can you get a honey extractor? Well, from your local bee club, borrow one. We recommend a lot of folks do that. And bee supply stores like us, you guys are lucky. You guys have Down to Earth down here, and there's Chenard's and Corvallis. There's a couple of bee supply stores around. I wanted to show you this thing. If you guys ever make it to the Oregon State Fair, there's always one of these on display. It's called a honey press. It's just a different type of extractor. This thing's super cool. I've always wanted to own one. I still don't have one yet, but it's basically a press. Some of them twist down, some of them pull down, and you basically just cut all your comb out, squish all the comb, and the honey squeezes out of this stainless steel sieve here. You get a little bowl at the bottom. More rudimentary. I don't like this for honey extracting because all your comb gets ruined. But if you're in the business or interested in harvesting all your beeswax for candle making or some other purpose, this is a pretty cool way to do it. Just another photo of the honey extractor there, the centrifuge, and a couple of the tools, little honey buckets and stuff there, going to be helpful. All right, this is probably the most important slide. Always recruit help. I told you we wore a few leather gloves out. It wasn't me. I did a lot of it, but we get lots of help. We're lucky we have some young nieces and nephews, so they get to come out. So our niece Ava, Alexander, and Andrew, and they're a little older than this. This was a few years old now, but they're out driving forklifts and helping us with the bees. I wanted to, this is a serious slide. I want to say work harder, not smarter. There are tools out there like these honey super grabbers that you can use 2 people to help with. There is even a forklift, or not a forklift, a hand truck that's built specifically for this purpose to help lift these things. And don't hurt yourself. Lane County lost a beekeeper this year. I can't think of his name, the queen breeder Thad, right? Star Farms, I think from getting hurt out there, so don't do that. Man, people ask us all the time if we sell raw honey. Yes, we do, is the answer. But the other question I get is, do you sell unfiltered honey? And yes, we do, but not that often. Unfiltered honey means different things to different folks. So when I think of unfiltered honey, I think about getting a quart jar out of my honey shop and going out there under the extractor and just filling it up. And that's as raw as honey as you get. I mean, short of just eating it out of the beehive, that's raw honey. But that honey, I think, surprises a lot of folks. It's got a lot of debris in it. You're going to have dead bee parts, bee legs, bee wings, bee heads, whole bees, things that I don't know where they came from. Chunks of beeswax that have, from the extracting process as it's spinning around, those little flakes of beeswax flying around and stuff. And so you get this kind of chunky honey, and you get some protein in there too, and it's not bee pollen. So unfiltered honey, well, I think what the general public is usually asking for is honey that's not finely filtered. It's not adulterated. It's not filtering all the pollens out of it, which you can do. It takes heat and some pumps. You can pump honey through micron filters that'll get it down to, where there's no pollens left in it. What do you guys think is the appropriate, I don't expect everybody to be micron filter experts in here, but I got a couple of numbers up there. What do you think honey should be filtered to? Does anybody think honey should never be filtered? Bee parts and all. I got no takers. All right.
I think filter and strain are 2 different words.
Yeah, I should have put the word strain on this slide.
Strain is what you have with the colander, and then filtered is the microns, right?
Yep. So I will update this slide with strained, because strained is the right word. We're straining honey here, just like you'd strain noodles in the kitchen. We're just letting gravity do the work here. And this is a double sieve, which I have a example of. You guys can check it out later. It has 2 baskets in it. So there's a more coarse basket here. This one happens to be somewhere around 1,000 microns. It's pretty coarse. This will catch dead bee parts, but some little things will go through. And this one's pretty fine. This one's probably around the 600 micron level, similar to cheesecloth. And then what we prefer to use for bottling honey, so this would be honey ready for retail, is something around 400 microns, which is a cloth like this. Gravity will do the trick. You don't have to force honey through this. And then there's too fine of a filter. So down here at 20 microns, anybody know what filter 20 microns might be? It's pretty fine. Coffee filters, yeah. Coffee filters are about 20 microns, it depends on the brand and whatnot, but too fine. Honey's not gonna just strain through that. It'll take an eternity and take heat, and just too fine. I have the word presentation up there because part of deciding the filtering is what presentation do you want. If you're going to have honey on your kitchen counter, you want to give it away as a gift to friends or family. Maybe you want to sell some to your neighbors, sell some at the farmer's market, bring it as a door prize to the bee club, something like that. yeah, you know, you don't want it looking like it's got dead bee parts and stuff in it, you know. So yeah, think about your audience. All right, so just a little bit about bottling. So we've kind of come a long ways here. We're extracting. We're all the way into the bottle section here. I talked about gravity. That's all we need. We don't need a lot. We just need gravity and some time to let that honey settle. Anything that did make it through, there's little micro particulates of beeswax, or just little tiny specks, like, you know, less than 400 microns, have made it through, and time will still solve that problem for you. We use honey pouring buckets, which I have a picture of there on the screen. And I didn't have one ready to go today, so imagine this one having a nice little pour spout, like this guy right here, attached inside. And once we get the honey through the extractor and through that double sieve there and that little screen, it's going into a pour bucket. And ideally, I'll let this sit for a week, maybe longer. If we're doing show honey, I might, like for a competition or something, I might let it sit in here for a month. And we just let time and gravity do its work, and all those little tiny micro particulates of beeswax will float to the top. And we're pouring honey off the bottom of the bucket here, where all that foam and stuff is not at, because it's all floating up here at the top. And yeah, so you just do it, you know, let it sit long enough. It's award-worthy honey. Dulcie and I enter honey all around the country, and I think Dulcie might tell you a little bit later about her honey judging stuff. So we're big fans of nicely fine filtered honeys. So I'll tell you just a little bit about our honey extractor. So we got this honey extractor. This is a Cohen 28 frame extractor in 2005. There were only 7 of these in the United States built. We have one of them. So we're very excited about that. These are very custom, special pieces of equipment. The reason there's not very many of these built, this is a really unusual size for a beekeeper. It's way too big for most hobby beekeepers. This would be overkill, and it takes several gallons of honey just to prime the system and the pumps, you know, so it takes a few honey supers just to even get it going. But for a big commercial operation, it's kind of too small. It's a little bit too much work. A little bit too inefficient, I should say. So, but we've made a lot of use out of this. This thing has extracted many thousands of honey supers for us, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It's not the best photo, but you can kind of see all the pour buckets in the background on the shelves. So that's how we pour probably 90% of all our honey that we bottle at Flying Bee Ranch. And people always think, I think sometimes there's some, I don't know, something super sophisticated in the back room, but it's not. It's just a 5-gallon bucket with a pour spout on it. So you can do a lot of stuff with those things.
What's in the barrels?
And the barrels also have honey in them. So just a little bit about, this is kind of an older photo. We have a nice newer room than this now, but each barrel of honey corresponds with a pour bucket, and each of those are a different varietal honey. So they're going to be, for us, they're alphabetical. So it's probably blackberry, blueberry, cranberry, clover, canola, and on down the line. All right, so I just wanted to show you a little bit more about some larger scale honey extracting. So this is all our line. On the left-hand side, those are hot knives. So they're knives that are on a camshaft, so they kind of vibrate effectively because of the camshaft. The little red hoses are hot water lines, so it heats up those metal knives as they're moving. I think that the heat really is just it's like maintenance. It keeps the beeswax from sticking to the knives so much. It doesn't really need heat to extract the honey, but helps keep those knives from getting gummed up. So you manually feed the frame down in between those knives while they're moving, and gravity lets that thing just kind of fall through the knives that are moving, and it uncaps the honey for you, and the frame, if it works properly, lands perfectly on this little stainless steel tray there, and we can push them into the honey extractor. It's pretty cool. These little pumps here, pretty invaluable to us. They're gear pumps that allow us to pump honey. Honey is a pretty special liquid. It's super thick. It takes a kind of a special pump to pump it. Sump pumps and drains and stuff are all part of it. So you guys probably noticed, I don't know if anybody caught it, but on this slide there's a date, 2005 to 2024. 2024, which was last year, was the last year that Dulcie and I extracted honey of our own. We do have honey this year, but we have subcontracted the extracting out. So we've sold our honey extractor. We don't do extracting anymore at our farm. I still have a little hand crank one, and we might play around with it a little bit, but all of our honey is extracted by our co-op beekeepers now. So Delcy will tell you a little bit more about the co-op, but we've partnered with now I think it's 23 commercial beekeepers in Oregon. We've changed our business model quite a bit over the last 5 years. Where we started out as commercial beekeepers, we've now become essentially honey packers. We manage the co-op, we have our bee supply store, and we spend a lot of our time working with different organizations, promoting the bee community in different ways than just keeping the bees. We have a lot of work that we do, as Fanta mentioned, with Oregon State Beekeepers. We work with OSU and their honeybee lab, a lot of honeybee labs around the country now, and as well as a bunch of private partnerships doing some consulting. So this year, was it yesterday? We were just there yesterday. I'm losing track of my days. So we were up at Sowers Apiaries, which is up in Canby. They have a 60 frame Cohen. This is an identical line to ours. It's just bigger. And they have a few features that are pretty cool. I have to manually push our frames where theirs are automated. They have a deboxer. I think I have a video of it here coming up, which is pretty cool. We never had that. This stuff's just super efficient. I just wanted to show you kind of what the lines look like behind the scenes there. Okay, so we've got a couple frames that are being extracted here. So can anybody tell me anything about, what do you guys see in this photo? So we've got two sets of honey frames, but what's different about them? What can you guys tell me about this?
I see a mix of plastic frames and wood frames.
All right, mix of plastic and wood. That's a cool observation. What else about, what about the honeycombs themselves? You guys notice anything different about them? Some are capped, some are uncapped, yep. And I would say that this one is kind of tore up, and this one looks nice. It looks like it's just come out of the beehive. So on the left-hand side, those are the frames going into the extracting machine. And these frames over here have already been extracted and are now coming out of it. The machine likes, interestingly enough, I didn't think about it till you said it, but it likes plastic frames. I don't know how beekeepers feel about plastic versus wood, but the honey extractors like plastic better. I don't know why, they just feed through it much nicer. I overheard a conversation when I came in today. We were talking about capped honey. So the frame on the left there, on the white plastic frame that's up next, it's not capped. And normally we don't want to extract honey if it's not capped. We want to wait till the bees have that nice wax capping. For the beekeeper, that's a real sure way. Tells us that the honey is probably below 18.6% moisture content, that it's ready to harvest. And if we extract wet honey, so if you were to go out 3 or 4 weeks ago when the blackberry honey flow is mid-flow, and you could go out and shake those honey frames out, they were so wet, you don't want to extract that. That is going to ferment probably. This honey on the left, although it's uncapped, I would still say it's ready for harvest. It's dry. I can shake that frame and no honey's coming out. There's no nectar falling out of it. It's real sticky in there. The bees are probably only a day or two away from harvest or capping that off with wax. At the end, when we're all done with honey harvest and all of the honey ends up in a 55-gallon drum to be stored for the winter that we'll use throughout the season, we take a measurement using a tool called a refractometer. It measures moisture content, and we're recording that and making sure that that number is below 18.6. So even if there's one frame that gets through, and this applies for you at home, if you've got an 8-frame or a 10-frame box and the center 8 frames are all capped off and the 2 on the outsides aren't, it's okay to let those go into the honey, because the reading that you care about at the end is what is the cumulative percentage for moisture reading. All right. Yep.
What do you do if after all that honey is in that 55-gallon barrel and it's not 18?
Oh yeah, well, that's a bad day. So we're trying to monitor this. We're also monitoring this at the field level out in the, we're waiting to pull the honey until it's capped enough. But if we have made a mistake, if too much wet honey has come through, but it wasn't dry enough. There's two things you can do as a beekeeper. When you pull it in, you can dehydrate it, so you can put it in a room with a dehydrator and physically dehydrate it. I think this is a little questionable. I don't know that it's best practices, to do it that way. But I mean, if your choices are your honey ferments in the frames or you dehydrate it, I would do something. I would dehydrate it. The other thing is, if we've made a mistake, too much wet honey, now I'm at 20% or something in my barrel, I'm probably going to call a mead maker or a brewer real fast and say, man, have I got a deal for you? Because the breweries and the meaderies and people that are fermenting honey for other products aren't going to care. They're going to ferment it anyway. And in that really fresh state, when the honey's just harvested, it's perfect for them. It's ready to go. And that happens very infrequently for us, but when it has, I've never had a problem finding a brewery that wouldn't love a good deal on some raw honey. So, or to split it up. I mean, they may not take a 55-gallon drum, but maybe in 5-gallon buckets or something, yeah. Okay, just got a few more here. We got 2 more slides. Okay, commercial honey extracting. This one's a little video, I think. The noise you hear in the background is just the honey extractor running. So here I'm scraping, in the last picture the frames are being fed, and while I'm waiting for that, see they're being fed right here. I'm scraping frames while that's happening. This little tool that I just used here at Sours Apiaries is called a deboxer. I don't know what I was doing not ever owning one of those, but it's amazing because in ours we would have to like physically, do one frame at a time, pull it out of that box, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you do that thousands of times a day and it's a big deal. So here the frames are going through. This video is super funny to me because it's actually a complete fail. Anybody see what's going wrong here? I didn't see it at first, so did anybody see what the problem was?
Crooked.
Okay, crooked. That's actually not it. Well, yeah, kind of. Actually, it is. It is the reason it didn't land right. And I don't know why they're going through crooked. But so right at the end of the video, let me play it one more time. We got time, I think. Here. Skip ahead here. So the honey frames are going through crooked. They're uncapped, but look where they're falling down here. And they're supposed to land where that one just went and go that way, but they're not. That one fell. And I sent like 10 more, and I'm like, why is it piling up? Oh, they fell. Well, this tray down here is all the drippings are dripping down. It goes into a little vat, and there's something down there called a baffle that keeps the wax back, but kind of lets the honey go through. And then when that vat gets full, there's a pump that pumps it into a wax spinner, and it's a big drum that spins really fast, and all the little wax particulates that are coming off here that are all sticky as they're spinning really fast, think of like a dryer drum spinning, all the honey's flinging out and being separated, and what you're left with is this kind of fairly dry wax, something that's ready to render down for candle making. All right, so I think we got one more video, and then we're on to the last slide here. There's Delcy in the background. Supervising. So, yeah. So this is a 60 frame Cowan extractor. So it's one of the top of the line premium, piece of equipment out there. And you just saw 20 frames get shoved in, or maybe I think this one's 15. I can't remember how wide it goes, but they'll spin the centrifuge and load another rack and spin it again and load another rack. So there are several racks being loaded in there. And then the drum will get spun. It's so heavy, there's so much honey in there that it'll burn the pumps up or the motors to like get them spinning. So you gotta grab that thing and spin it like what was that game show? The Price is Right. Yeah, the Price is Right that thing every time. Yep. Anyway, okay, guys, I think that's all I got for you here. So there's some 2025 frame of metafoam honey. It's one of the creme de la creme. So if you guys have any questions, you guys want me to talk about any of this equipment or show you anything else, I'm happy to do that.
How do you clean your especially in a small hobbyist thing, your knife, your scraper, all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you clean them and not damage like your septic system, or where are you cleaning?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So rule number one, don't ever put wax down your drains. That's a bad idea. Because there's no amount of hot water that will do it, that will clean it out. It has to be like scraped out. So in our processing building, we have some special traps, like they're like fine screens that keep wax from going down there. And we're even if there's like a spill and there was a bunch of waxy stuff in there, we would be careful not to send that down the drain. Hot water is your friend. Hot water will clean up any honey mess. For cleaning up the equipment, so at the end of the season, that big honey extracting line, we would disassemble it all in pieces. It all comes apart with bolts, and we would take it outside. And in one day, the bees clean all of it up. And that, if you're at home, you guys have your buckets and your little 2-frame honey extractor and all these tools and stuff. You just set that stuff outside for the afternoon. By tomorrow morning, bees will have done all the work for you. Absolutely spotless. They'll lick all that honey up. And the cool thing is none of it goes to waste. You're not rinsing honey down the drain. So then the last thing we do to clean it up and store it for the winter is we just do a bleach wipe and spray. So we disinfect everything. I mean, honey is a natural kind of, antibacterial food anyway, but just to make sure nothing's got on it or going to grow mold or something over the winter, we'll disinfect with bleach.
And your bags?
The bags, these would be disposable. I don't know, if you get this real waxy, I don't know if you could clean it out well enough. We use a similar material, so instead of a bag, I use a sheet of this stuff. And if you can imagine, it goes over the strainer, kind of like this. I use some clothes pins that keep it all, held on there. And the honey goes through, and that little bit of wax that develops on there, while it's still wet, and don't let it dry on there, I can go over and flip the screen over on a 5-gallon bucket. I've got a big sink, and I can rinse that screen out, the other way with hot water, and it washes all that wax off right away, as long as you don't let it dry or solidify on there. And nobody's from the ODA in here. I take that 5-gallon bucket outside and I dump it out, which we're not supposed to do. Everything's supposed to go down the drain in a food processing environment. But like I said, you can't let the wax go down the drain. There's no good solution that I know of to have a wax catcher. Some commercial kitchens have like grease traps, and I think something like that would probably work. But it's really overkill for the little tiny bit that we're dealing with. Is there another question back there somewhere? Yeah.
What RPM is the best for an electric extractor?
Oh. I think the question is, what's the ideal RPM? Right. So like choosing a motor. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, so I don't want to tell you a number, but there is such thing as too fast. More speed isn't necessarily better. It's pretty fast though. I mean, that thing's moving pretty good. Hundreds of times per minute for sure. Thousands might be too much. But if you spin honey too fast, what will happen? So in most honey extractors, the frame is inserted vertically. In the Big 60 frame we just saw, that frames are actually inserted horizontally. But in most of the cases, they're horizontal, and they're spinning with the top bar facing outward towards the side of the extractor. And if you spin that too fast, the centrifugal force that develops in there will actually fling the honeycomb right off the frame. It'll detach, and it just kind of makes a mess in there. And so more speed is not always better. So what was it?
The leaf blower, it works very well.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't use anything else it works really well to do a lot of supers. If for hobby beekeepers, I think the fume board and the escape board are really effective tools. The leaf blower is kind of a nice bonus if you have one already. The little, now they have battery powered ones that are kind of smaller. Those are perfect. We've got gas powered ones that are bigger, and you know, if you have help, somebody can have a backpack blower and be running that only, but it's hard to like have a backpack blower and hold a honey super, and you know, it's too hard to do it by yourself. But the little battery powered ones that take like the cordless drill type batteries, and those are nice because they're lightweight and they don't blow too hard. You know, it's just plenty of blowing power. Sorry, I didn't catch the question there. Last one, I think.
Saying if hand cranking is adequate, then you don't need too much more than that.
Oh yeah, so that's a good kind of a good point. Imagine how fast you can hand crank. Now there's gears there that give you some sort of a 3-to-1 or something, you know, because it's not just a 1-to-1 crank. But yeah, if you send me an email, I'll follow up and I'll get an answer for you though. All right, guys, thank you very much.